back to Talk to Harry. I'm Sarah Jane Sugitan, still your substitute host for Mr. Tambatco, who's observing the 120-minute limit on all congressional candidates. No? So there's a limit on how long he can appear on TV. So for the second and third part of the next few weeks of Talk to Harry, I'll be your special special host. So right here with me in the studio is still three Lente volunteers. Okay, we still have Robbie Ilagan and Chai Beltra. Welcome back to the show. And substituting naman for Sean Galvez is Carly Bonco. Welcome to the show, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay, well, welcome back, ladies. So before the break, I was egging you to teach me about campaign finance because, as I said, we're observing that also here in the station. And I think media would be a very good partner for Lente in the sense that we're all going to be monitoring violations. So media reports it, and Lente does something about it other than just exposing these offenses on TV or on social media. Then volunteers or voters can turn to Lente, to rely on Lente to actually prosecute the offenses if there are complainants, as we have discussed in the second part of the show. But I'd like to know more about campaign finance. Why are you monitoring campaign finance?
Basically, we still go back to Lente's prime goal, which is accountability. Since we've mentioned that if the candidates, for instance, would spend more than what is expected, or if walang limitation, the tendency is for them to get back what they have used, from the taxes and from the money of the government, and that won't be very much helpful for us, for the public. So we would like to see how the violations are, and we have to monitor them and to enforce them properly when it comes to campaign finance this 2030.
I think it's a good thing that there is actually a dedicated group who's going to monitor and also report the violations and also prosecute them. No? Hindi lang parang report and then it's just in the news for a couple of days and then it's gone. This one, Lente's advocacy is to actually follow through, diba? Let the rule of law run, and then let the people, I mean, if there's anyone, yun lang ang limitation yun, no? If it cannot be an anonymous complaint, it has to be substantiated by evidence, and also there has to be a verified complainant. Ngayon, okay, campaign finance. You said that you're going to monitor it because it has a direct relation to governance. So, ibig sabihin, if a candidate spends a lot on campaigning, then babawiin niya yun once he or she gets elected into office. That's the premise that Lente is working on, diba? So, ano ba yung mga limitations on campaign finance? So, Chai, can you name some?
The money spent per voter is 3 pesos per voter if it's a candidate that has a political party. If it's a candidate that doesn't have a political party, it's 5. And for political parties, it's 5 pesos. And for president and vice president, it's 10 pesos.
10 pesos. So, okay, let's recap that. So, 3 pesos per voter if you're a candidate with a political party. Okay, 3 pesos. Pag wala kang political party,
it's 5.
You can spend 5 pesos per voter. Tapos yung political parties themselves,
also 5 pesos.
Also 5 pesos. Pero I mean, in your experience, in reality, that 3 pesos and the 5 pesos, hindi mo masyadong, it's too small. For example, isn't that too small for, I mean, given the expenses nowadays, it's, I mean, how much ang tarpaulin, how much ang flyers, for example. I mean, if the flyer will only cost 1 peso, why not? So you can still fall under the 3 peso cap. But is that something that is inflexible, for example? It's inflexible, right? It's in the law. It cannot be changed.
I think it can change unless there's a subsequent amendment to the law.
Okay.
It sticks to that amount per constituent of the candidates.
Pero right now, the 3 peso and the 5 peso cap, hindi kaya marami ng violators niyan, ipso facto, considering ang daming advertisements, and then, I don't know, it's just something that I'm assuming. So, what do you think, Carl?
I think it depends in the long run. Like, it depends on the reports that they file, because according to the law, they're supposed to file reports of their expenditures. So I think in the end, it's the only time where you can actually find out if they have exceeded the limitations prescribed by the law.
Yeah, you see, that's it. That's the only time that you can find out about a candidate's expenditures, when they file that report at the end of the election period.
Yes.
Pero right now, during campaign period, how are you going to gather data, for example, on campaign finance? I mean, are candidates willing to divulge them, for example, to Lente if you ask them, or?
According to
Yes,
attorney, the COMELEC representative we had yesterday, I think they have a certain parang may mechanism na sila kunwari if there is a rally, proclamation rally or something for the campaign. They should file, I think, to the COMELEC the expenses for that rally. And if, for instance, a volunteer or a normal citizen would see that there are a lot going on, there's balloons, there's food, there's anything, automatic, they can check, estimate whether or not the report that will be given by that candidate or by that political party would match the report of a volunteer. And it's not necessary that we wait for the expenses and the report, since automatic naman magsasend sila to COMELEC a report on their political rally. And if the volunteer would see that it is not a match, then we can file for an offense already.
Okay, so aside from the 3 peso and 5 peso cap, what are the limitations on campaign finance under the law? Are there other, for example, other rules that candidates have to observe in relation to campaigning, for example? Like for TV, oh yeah, we can mention na rin.
So for TV, it's
TV.
120 minutes
120
for
minutes.
national elections and 60 for local. And then 180 for radio for national, and then 90 for local elections.
Okay, are you also going to be monitoring the performance of candidates in that regard? For example, how often do they come out on TV and on radio? Is that something that Lente will also monitor?
Possible, but I think it would be really, kasi
It'll be
we can't
difficult
really
to monitor.
monitor every time na lalabas sila sa TV or maririnig sila sa radyo. But
I
Okay,
think it
so-
would be possible to ask stations if they're willing to provide for us the numbers or the total tally of how much airtime a candidate was given. So if it would be possible.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but at the moment, will you be, is Lente, for example, moving towards getting that data from networks or from radio stations? Will you be partnering with media networks, for example, to get that kind of data?
so far, I think ang part pa lang ng media for us is to get the word out for Lente. And they, as far as I can remember, COMELEC said that media networks are responsible to give them naman the copy of any political ad that will go out. So if if this media corporations would send to COMELEC, and since we are partners, I think we have an access to the accounts of that media broadcasting company. So I think it would be easier for us to monitor if we would go to that direction.
Okay, what other what is still also provided under the law? Are there other limitations other than the TV, the radio, and then the expenditure per voter?
Yeah, I think one of the main limitations to have to look at in the law is the violations, possible violations that a candidate or any other person can do. For example, a candidate cannot solicit or receive money from certain institutions, like for example, financial institutions and
About
people
private parties?
Yeah, I think they can solicit for private parties, but there's
But
just
not
certain
banks.
limitations
Okay.
provided for example, those who operate public utilities or those who have a contract or a subcontract with the government for a certain concession.
Okay.
So there's a certain list of people who can provide for financial.
Okay, so not everyone can provide a candidate with
yes.
with finances
Yes.
for the campaign. So they cannot approach banks.
They cannot approach
Financial
that.
institutions.
Ah,
Insurance
no,
companies, can they approach?
No.
No also.
Yeah.
So banks cannot loan to.
Okay.
I mean, there's no.
They can loan, but they cannot give donations. They can give
Okay, and they cannot
loans
give
for
donations.
if it's in the ordinary course of
Okay.
business naman. So
Okay.
they can give loans, but donations specifically for the candidates, I don't think they can give.
They cannot donate.
Yes.
So what else? What are the other, for example, election offenses na in
Election
relation to
offenses.
campaign finance?
Like they said earlier, vote buying and vote selling is very rampant. So in this case, candidates or I think any other person cannot promise to give money, cannot promise to give jobs or.
Nako, they cannot promise to give jobs. How about food?
Actually, they can't give food.
They cannot give food,
Yeah,
but they
during,
can
the
promise
rallies.
food.
No, then kasi it's an expenditure,
It's a
so
grant,
no,
eh.
it's a
It's a
grant,
grant.
so no.
Okay.
So, but the main point there is that it's done to vote to garner votes or to prevent someone from voting for another person. So those promises are prohibited by law.
In other words, if it becomes a bribe, then that's prohibited under the law. If I promise you food or a job or education.
But we have to differentiate from, they have this list of things that they're supposed to do. Yung mga
Yes, for
promises
example.
naman. So, kailangan i-differentiate natin yun from something specific which turns into a bribe. And a campaign promise in general.
Okay. A campaign promise is allowed then.
Yes.
So
Yes,
it's allowed.
it's
So you can
allowed.
promise something general like I'm going to feed all of you, I'm going to provide jobs. Diba?
Yeah.
So previous candidates do that anyway.
Yes.
They promise the moon and the stars when they're campaigning. Pero pagdating, when they get elected, so when they get proclaimed, yun yung mahirap. Parang it's a risk that they will kumbaga, expect a return on their investment during the campaign period, especially if they campaigned heavily. Diba? So that's what you guys are monitoring. And right now, although I say it's a very good trust, it's very good advocacy, parang don't you think it will be difficult also for you guys? I mean, to monitor campaign finance. First of all, I would suggest na there should be a partnership, for example, with media networks or even with printing press, siguro, kasi yung mga like tarpaulins, diba, mga expenditures din yan eh. Kaya lang, it's hard kasi you have national candidates and then you have local candidates. So, and then ang dami nila. Diba? It's nationwide. So, hindi nyo sila monitor lahat. Diba? It will not be fair if you just monitor one candidate. Tapos yung isa naman, hindi nyo monitor. Diba? So, I think yun yung mga challenges ng Lente this coming May 13, 2013.
It's also a challenge because the 5 pesos and the 3 pesos I mentioned, it was decriminalized.
Decriminalized. So it's not, you don't go to jail if you
No.
spend beyond the 5
So
pesos.
you can really see if the candidate is really has accountability when he files that their expenditure, if it's within the limit provided by law.
Okay. So yun lang yung decriminalized. What about TV and radio? If you go beyond that, still criminal. Okay. Still criminal. Okay. So yun lang. So they can go beyond that and maybe they only pay a fine if it's decriminalized. So meron lang fine. You know the amount of the fine? Is it something na mabigat bayaran or?
I'm not sure. I think it's around 5 to 10,000.
So if you're like a
It's not
very
really
rich
big.
candidate, it's not really a problem for you if you exceed.
Well, you can spend millions for
So ano ba naman yung 10,000
10,000
na fine, di ba? So yun lang. Pero are they going to decriminalize also, I mean, the other offenses? Or ito lang yung decriminalize?
As of
Recent lang
now.
ba yan? Is that recent? Or?
it was, I'm not sure with this, but I think it was an election reform from Rocco or on Rocco.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that. But, well, I don't know if it's good to know. Siguro if I'm a candidate, it's good to know. If I spend beyond the 3 peso, 5 peso cap, I would just pay 10,000 pesos no fine. But you see, isa pang problem dyan. What if they don't become honest in reporting their expenditures?
Yeah.
Diba? What does Comelec do about that, for example? Have they shared their...
I think, as I've mentioned, kailangan talaga ng Comelec na tulong. They asked Lente to help them. They made everything accessible through the net on monitoring, and so they asked us. But Comelec itself, I guess, if there is a way for a candidate to manipulate his expenses, Comelec is mawawalan ng power talaga yung law if we face candidates who would really want to violate the law for themselves. But I think if every citizen would do their job in monitoring this campaign finance, I think it would not be a problem to catch those who violate the offenses.
Oo nga eh. Kasi parang it's easy sometimes to circumvent the law. Sabi nga nila, if there's a will, there's a way. So, lalo na if you get good lawyers and to think that you're also a legal group, diba? So, you will also be encountering, I don't know, I hope not naman, pero maybe you will also encounter opposition from candidates. I mean, those who will be, reported to you. And then also, the lawyers themselves who will be, of course, partisan this coming election. So that's a real risk, no? Pero nevertheless, anyone who wants to become a Lente volunteer can become a Lente volunteer. They just have to reach out to you on Facebook. That's where you are, and Twitter.
And the municipal officers.
And the
that we have.
municipal officers, okay. Tapos sa mga, siguro, law schools all over the country, most of them are your members or chapters ng Lente. And then also, we'll be expecting a lot from Lente. I hope, kasi it's hard to gather data on campaign finance. I think that's, unless you partner really with the source.
Yes.
Because if you just rely on the report, it's possible that maybe it's not complete, it's not truthful, or it's not accurate. Or yeah, it's not accurate. So hopefully, our citizens will be active in partnering also with Lente and reporting campaign finance violations, among others. Kasi there's also vote buying, there's also vote selling. And you guys are going to come back for the next few weeks to teach us about other election offenses. How's that? Okay. So there you have it. Thank you very much, Chai, Robbie, and Carl for joining us, and also Sean Galvez earlier from Lente. Okay, actually, my co-host has a suggestion on that. If I may just share, yung dun sa TV, maybe we could just funnel everything to the national channel para hindi na nag-advertise sa mga iba pang mga networks. And then you have fair airtime. So everyone's given fair airtime, kumbaga opportunity to go on air. Pero dapat dun lang sa national government's channel, which is Channel 4. I think it's the only it's a government channel, di ba? Okay, anyway, there you have it, folks. First episode of Lente with Lente volunteers. They're going to come back for the next few weeks until Election Day to educate us more about Lente and also their advocacies, election offenses, and campaign finance right here on Talk to Harry. My name is Sarah Sugita, and join us again next week right here on GNN.
You are what you watch.